Flying Casuals brought to you by Patreon supporters Brent, Andy Dugan, David Bush, Rob Patsky, Jory Webb, Kelly Breckner, Nate Edison, and Wes Anderson. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to Flying Casual, a Star Wars podcast. Here's your host, Michael Canterbury.
Welcome, Star Wars fans, to the latest installment of Casual Council. That is incorrect, Holly. This is Flying Casual, and this is not Casual Council.
You almost did it again.
Boy, a great 2 weeks in a row starting off improperly, referencing the podcast episode.
I think this is actually Holly's Hyperspace Happy Hour.
This is Holly's Hyperspace Happy Hour. It is the second Saturday of the month, Holly, which means we're talking about another Star Wars book.
We sure are. That book would be Dark Disciple. Michael, did you read it?
I read it a couple years ago, Holly. This thing came out in 2015, and that's when Michael was on top of canon novels. The thing came out, and a few, let's call it a month later, the book would have been completed, and I would have been talking about it. So I would say late 2015, early 2016. It's been a while.
Since you read a book?
Since I've read a book, but have no fear. I read the Wikipedia summary. So I pretty much know everything there is to know about Dark Disciple.
You're well-versed in the life and journey of Asajj Ventress.
Hello. Not too familiar, but we're going to get to that here later. But, folks, we are in our monthly book club talking about Dark Disciple by Christie Golden, and we brought our friends along for us, as we do with every book club. We have Paige, Rob, Nettie, and Luke dropping in the podcast to talk about this novel. And Holly, I mean, you're kind of newer to the novels, and I know this was a huge recommendation from our in-house encyclopedia, Luke Elder. I mean, what about when Luke was summarizing kind of where this was and maybe what's kind of going on? What enticed you to pick this one up?
Oh,
the cover art, because it's pretty sexy.
No, not the cover art.
Not the cover
actually,
art.
because Luke didn't show me the book; he just told me the book.
That's true.
Oh, I have a thing for night witches. Not like a weird thing, but like
a new development on Flying Casual, as usual.
I think that's how it came up. I think that we were talking about Dathomir and the Night Witches. And it was like, you gotta read it. Yeah,
not as much magic in this one, I will say, right? I mean, a little bit. They dabble in the magic, but we're not talking about like dark magic the entire book.
No, we're just talking about other darkness.
Yeah, that's
I guess.
right.
No, there's definitely some magic.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of history about the Night Sisters and the magic that they use, and some of the trials that they went through, which is interesting. And then, I mean, it's really more so just dark side and the Force, and less so just the magic.
Well, folks, for all of you listening, then, I mean, look out for books in the future that has to do with witchcraft. No, we are not becoming a Harry Potter podcast. I believe we're not, right? That's not. Never read the books.
Harry Potter, who's
or
that?
Seen all the movies, but we will be talking about more witches, more Night Sisters in future episodes. But Holly, can we go around the horn and just give like a really a non-spoiler kind of discussion about what everyone kind of liked about the book, and then we'll get heavy into the details. What did you think?
Oh, I really liked it. I think that this was one of the Star Wars books that I actually blew through. I think everybody knows.
Wow, crazy.
I think that everybody knows it took me a really long time to read Bloodline.
I'm going to go ahead and say not as long as me.
Oh, no. But for me, it was a long time. It actually caused us to keep pushing back the book club. I'm so sorry.
Pandemic, it happens.
It happens. But I found this really enjoyable to read. I personally like the pacing. I think that the characters had really engaging roles in this novel. And I think that having it being told from different characters' perspectives, but mainly from Asajj herself, was an interesting take on the story. Plus, my limited amount of knowledge from the Clone Wars, since, spoiler, I never finished the series.
Yeah, hey, that's okay.
It filled in some gaps.
Yeah.
Phrasing.
Phrasing.
Okay, but overall, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it a different view on the characters and the story that I personally didn't know very much about.
A story that takes place in the middle of the Clone Wars to the back end of the Clone Wars, and supposedly a story that would have taken place in the Clone Wars if it were ever finished. We didn't get that. Instead, we get a novel, I will say hot and steamy at times, Holly.
Yeah.
Details that probably would have been left out of the animated series.
I agree with that, and we can talk more about that later. I guess some of the background that I found on this book, there are some interviews with Christie Golden regarding how she came about writing this and what kind of went into her writing it, because I think there's a lot of pressure from the Star Wars community, the fans, all of that, and I think that sometimes that pressure can steer people away from wanting to write a book, especially about something like the Clone Wars, which people hold so dearly and have a lot of opinions about. But I think that she did a great job. I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that she got the idea for this after watching 8 or so of the unpublished episodes from the Clone Wars. Does that
sounds
sound
about
right?
I thought you were going to say 50 Shades of Grey.
No,
but,
that's not right.
Okay. That's not accurate. Note to self: Christie Golden has not read or watched 50 Shades of Grey.
Write it down.
So let's go around the horn. I want to start with Nettie. Nettie, you picked this up I think a while ago, but maybe I'm wrong. But what did you think, man? I mean, we're delving into a familiar territory, but I mean, we're digging deep in some of the sentiments of some of these Jedi that seem to be following a straight and narrow path most of the time, but seems like they're okay with delving into the dark every once in a while. What did you think of this, man?
I didn't know much about going into it, but I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. I definitely thought it was a good book. Ventress has never been one of my favorite characters, but I really felt like this was probably one of the best examples of fleshing out a character. So I really enjoyed that. And then I'm sure we'll get into it, but like you just said, some of the Jedi aspects you see in there are really cool and really interesting and kind of lead into episode 3 really well about where the Jedi are going. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Rob, I want to ask you the story of Quinlan Voss in this. Strikingly similar to a character maybe from Legends that we know as Darth Revan. I mean, how did this book hit you? I mean, we're in canon here, obviously, that kind of Revan stories in the past, but you can see where they've picked up that story and dropped it in here. What did you think of it?
I actually thought the story, like Holly said, paced well. I thought it paced fast at the beginning. I thought that they should have probably drew the meeting with Dooku out a little more. I didn't like how fast it actually went into it and then people were caught and all that stuff. But I thought the whole novel as a whole flowed together perfectly, except I did not like the ending. I did not.
Yeah.
I mean, I got some problems with it.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to get to that.
We'll get into it.
For
Don't
sure.
you worry.
Problems with that ending, phrasing from Rob there. Now, Paige is a bit of a romantic. Okay, so I know that she was enjoying this relationship between these maybe, unsuspecting characters, Holly. Paige, what'd you think?
I had read this before, so this was a reread. I liked it just as much second time. I mean, there are some problems that we'll talk about.
Absolutely.
Holly knows. But Asajj Ventress has been like one of my favorite characters since like the OG Clone Wars, like in 2003. So this is like one of my favorite books because we get to see her in action more so than we did in the actual Clone Wars, which love the Clone Wars. But one of the good things about the book is it's kind of like the episode structure, even though it's not actually on the TV, which is something I liked. And Quinlan's a great character too. So that's great. I loved all of that. And it had all the good snarky content that you expect from Clone Wars and good cameos like Rex, who I love Rex. And I mean, a bit of hypocrisy, here and there. So
Might be the title of this discussion.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So I liked it overall. Some issues, but I told Holly that I threw in a metric because I was going to be negative. So I picked 2 Taylor Swift songs for you, Michael.
Come on.
To,
You know I love Taylor. Taylor, listen, Columbus, Ohio, circa 11, backstage.
Good Lord.
Go ahead.
That the book reminded me of, and I picked Madwoman in Exile. So that's about how I feel about the whole book.
Surprising fact, I don't know what those songs are. Yeah.
What are you doing?
I think
Folklore's been out for a bit. What are you doing?
You're absolutely right. I probably could sing the song, couldn't tell you what the title was.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into it.
Star Wars.
He's gonna look it up later. Don't worry.
That's fine.
So no Ray shipping here, but definitely, some shipping going on. I don't know if anyone was shipping Quinlan Voss.
I was into it 120%.
Yeah, I was. I mean, after watching Clone Wars, did not suspect, Holly, that Quinlan Voss, such a ladies' man.
I don't know.
Didn't even look like he bathed.
Okay, here's the thing, though. I think everyone can agree with this. Quinlan Voss definitely gives off the bad boy Jedi
What's
vibe.
up? Hello. Like a Ben Solo, but more hairy.
Not even close to a Ben Solo.
Okay.
So I guess I don't find it necessarily so surprising that he would be a ladies' man. Also, he has a heart. He has a big heart, and he wears it right here.
That's questionable. We'll get to that.
If you're not watching on YouTube, I just patted my sleeve.
Yeah, absolutely. No phrasings there. No phrasings there.
Phrasing. I do have to say, you guys know that I have a huge issue with the romance in Star Wars. I'm not shy about saying that, but this wasn't like over the top, like too much romance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We can get into that.
The temptation was everywhere in this book. I mean, romance, dark side.
Yeah.
We're delving deep. Luke, I think you picked up this one again, second time around. Still as enjoyable as the first?
Wow. Yeah, I've been pumping this book up for so long. To Holly, trying to send the messages through the Force. Pick this for the book club. Dark Disciple is the greatest. Do it. So I was utterly thrilled when it was chosen for the next one, and we got to dive back in. It's got to be top 3 new canon novels for me, and I'm usually pretty Star Wars positive, but so you have to grade this on the Luke scale of positivity. It's even way up there.
He's a shill. So we gotta shill here. I don't know. We can't get rid of him.
The journey that Asajj goes on throughout the arc of the Clone Wars, Paige mentioned loving her from the get-go, I think, and even in the Genndy Tartakovsky series, 2003. And for me, I kind of had the exact opposite. So I love that Paige was with her from the get-go, and I had to grow into her. Yeah. To me, it's very, very Jaime Lannister for those Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones fans.
I understand.
Jaime, season 1 of the show, or book 1, there's just nothing but you despise him, nothing but hatred for him. Yep. And then he grows into the most fascinating character and my favorite character in the entire series because of how complex his background is, and you understand where he comes from. And for me, Asajj is the same way. I was annoyed by her in the early episodes of the Clone Wars. She's this kind of one-note villain.
Yeah.
She usually gets defeated and then runs away. Yeah. The very first episode of the entire series after the movie came out, she's just getting her butt kicked by Yoda, and then she runs away. And then over and over again, she just kind of gets her butt kicked and runs away. But she gets a lot more interesting once Dooku casts her aside, and then she's this other party outside of the Clone Wars conflict, but still an actor in all these galactic events. And so she just goes on this fascinating journey. You learn about her backstory, how she came to be. You learn about the Night Sisters. So she's grown into just one of the best, I think, Star Wars characters there is out there. And I think one that is probably underappreciated.
Yeah, she's got a story of loss, just like everyone else in Star Wars. It makes you feel for her.
And we're kind of with her on I know that there's a lot of talk about Darth Vader's redemption, and I feel like we actually are with Asajj on her road to redemption a lot longer than we are with some of the other Star Wars characters that people want to rave about their redemption story. So I think, since Luke brought it up, that was one of my questions I was going to ask you guys, what you actually thought about Asajj's journey, because I do think it's a fascinating one. She goes from being a Jedi Padawan, a Sith assassin, a Night Sister. We meet her in this novel now, and she's what, a bounty hunter?
She's an individual of many hats, Holly. Before we get to that, can we bring up Luke describing Jaime Lannister's life as complex? Putting it mildly, I would say he's hooking up with his sister. So lots of things going on there. Definitely more complicated. Anyway, Holly, a lady of many hats.
This is a Star Wars.
Not a Bend the Knee podcast. You're absolutely right. A lady of many characters, and I think that's what makes her fascinating. But she's one of those that kind of does what's necessary to survive. She is a survivor out in the galaxy. Luke, what is it so much about Ventress that pulls you in? Is it that she always finds a way? Is it she is complex, but what specifically is it that, because you did make that transition to be like kind of like Ahsoka, right? Like we all were just like, oh my god, like this teenager is annoying, but then we end up loving her. She becomes more and more complex. So what exactly is it that you love about it?
Yeah, I think comparing her to Ahsoka, you get way more backstory of Asajj than you get ever of Ahsoka. I think we don't really know Ahsoka from the young age on. We just know her as a Padawan moving forward. Mm-hmm. So Asajj is even way more developed in terms of backstory. I think it's fascinating. If you watch, it's referenced in this book, and it's through a lot of episodes of the Clone Wars, you see that she was sold off basically to slavery by the Night Sisters to some like pirates, which is a really rough go. And like they were, I guess, being accosted by these pirates regularly. They needed to come to some kind of settlement. It's like, here, take one of ours who's powerful to work with you, and that's like probably good for the Night Sisters in the long run, but a huge betrayal to Asajj. And so she's carrying that forward. And then to see her come under the tutelage of a Jedi and sort of get that light side, and she's down with it. But then to lose him and then like embrace her rage through losing him to fight back. And then she's just this like put upon soul in the galaxy that is, sort of a victim of circumstance. So she's a really sympathetic character in the end, where like I said, like she just starts out as this one-note bad guy that you're supposed to dislike. Yeah. But she contains so much more and is revealed to be so much more.
I don't know about you guys, but I find Asajj to be a very believable character because I think often in real life, we meet people who go through really hard times and go to really dark places, and they respond to those circumstances in not the best way. And we're kind of with Asajj when that happens to her. And I think that we've all been there where, like, you've done something and you've been like, I wish I hadn't have done that, but I was, being emotionally reactive in that moment, and I couldn't control myself. And I feel like we see that happen with Asajj, and I feel like we get that growth in her character. And it truly is, going back to what Dave Filoni said, George Lucas told him that Star Wars is a story of hope. And I feel like if Asajj is not that kind of character, we truly see her being the embodiment of that hopeful story, then as tragic as her end is, which we can get to, but I just feel like for everything that she's gone through, and then for her to still come through it and see that good in life is pretty astounding.
And those experiences have made her vulnerable, and it's unfortunate she, like many of our vulnerable characters who have gone through those things in Star Wars, become a pawn in someone's game, and it's just it's so tragic. I mean, Maul, another perfect. I feel like her and Maul have had very, very similar experiences, not just coming from the Night Sister kind of realm, but it's another tragic Star Wars story.
I see a lot of rants coming from Rob, and I kind of want to get his take on what he thought about. But
let's go, Rob.
It's all you.
Yo, all right. Look, so again, I can't say anything else. She was a villain that nobody liked, and when I started watching the Clone Wars years ago, I was like, man, who is this? Like, get out of here, get out of here. But she got close to Anakin, She got close.
That's true.
That takes a lot. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I see her and they talk about her skill, and she talks about the TKs, and that's Terracotta, okay, Star Wars Galaxy terms. So when she does all those things, and then like she's straight up bold, like bold. That's the way you want your character. Like, if you would almost think if she was cast as Vader, she would almost be a perfect war Vader. And I know that this is completely different and crazy, but it's because she comes into it colder because she accepts what she has to do. She's almost like Obi-Wan, but like who she is that way, because she does her duty, but she always does it. But you got it. She always did run away at the beginning. But for me, this book really opened up like a soft side to her, which you didn't think. And you saw Quinlan breaking the walls down, but she kept punching him and kept going on with him. But for me, I think what really put this all together, and it happened very early in the book, was how fast the Jedi went to just say, yeah, we're going to kill him. Yeah. Like really? Like, I've never heard it. And Obi-Wan was against that. And for me, that's what it leads to, Ventress and the whole story. But early in that book, when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's not the Jedi way.
Come on. And Paige,
it's not.
Paige, you alluded to this hypocrisy as well. Let's just call it what it is. Mm-hmm. It's using, and that's why you feel so bad, because they're using Asajj. Mm-hmm. They're using her to accomplish an end goal, and expendable to them. And I mean, in the end, obviously they see some merit to what she did, and they, partner and all that, whatever. But I mean, Quinlan too, right? I mean, he'll easily probably, kind of fall for all this, and he'll do what needs to be done. He's kind of one of those Jedi, right? He even kind of got that a little bit from the Clone Wars. So I mean, let's talk about that hypocrisy a little bit.
She's ready.
I mean, first I want to say about Asajj, I think because she's a female villain, I think people are so quick to write her off as like dumb and like uncomplicated because she's a woman. Like if Anakin was going through these things, people would be like, oh yeah, that's fine. But because she's a woman, I feel like people kind of like, but I agree. I think she's a totally complex and unapologetic character, and that's why she's so great. Yeah. But I'll talk about the hypocrisy all day long. So, okay. When I watched the Clone Wars, I was like, oh, I like Mace Windu now because he treats the clones like human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I reread this book, and I'm sorry, Luke. I remembered why I hate Mace Windu because he is such a hypocrite. Yeah. He's the first one to be like, we're going to go kill this person. That's what we're going to do. And I'm sitting here like, you're the person with a purple lightsaber who's the most most likely person to go dark. And you're sitting here saying, let's go kill this person. These people are expendable.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is the only person in that room who deserved to get out of Order 66 because he is the only person with a brain.
Strong.
And treats people like people.
Was that the Force intervening? I mean, did the Force say you're one of the good ones, right?
Well, it's because he has attachments to people. He treats people like people, which in the end, that's why Quinlan came back, is because of his attachments.
Come on.
You can't have people stop caring about people. That's ridiculous. The Pope has friends. Monks have friends. Nuns have friends. You can't even have a friend? What? I'm sorry. No. I know that's going to be too much hate, but I'm sorry. It made me so angry. And then I found myself agreeing with Count Dooku because he's right. They don't treat the clones like people.
Yeah, they don't. Let's order another million of them to just go in and do what needs to be done.
They were sitting there acting like the whole Krell thing was like no big deal. And it was like a total push under this. The only people impacted by that were the clones. And that was like the whole thing that I was just like angry about because I'm a big Rex person, obviously.
Yeah.
That whole like episode arc was like devastating.
Yeah.
And Mace Windu in the Clone Wars was like so sympathetic and he like treated the clones like people. And then here he is. Let's just go murder this guy.
Yeah.
Quinlan, I don't care. We'll murder Quinlan. I don't even care. I've known him for a very long time, but like we'll kill him. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever happens. He's not maybe one of the good ones. Yeah.
Not to mention, since she's talking about executing Quinlan,
Hold on.
he says, hold on. The person who was one of the biggest supporters of executing Quinlan was none other than Mr. Anakin Skywalker himself.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that for a second, because that was kind of the hypocrisy that I was like,
Oh, yeah.
But
And
you
he goes and talks to Padme about it.
He does. But remember where Anakin's coming from. I mean, obviously Anakin's dabbling on the side with Padme and no one really knows about it. And so those attachments, you know, we give him props for that. And we know he's going through a lot or whatever. But Obi-Wan Kenobi is also his master, duty, you know, focus, honor, missions. I can see him being torn. And I think that's a lot of where the hypocrisy comes from. But Anakin's flawed too. The Chosen One has his flaws as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. And I guess we haven't heard from Nettie for a little while, so I just wanted to ask, do you, Nettie, think that maybe seeing the hypocrisy coming from Anakin is something that you would have expected from Anakin if you know his character earlier on in the prequels and earlier on in the Clone Wars, or do you think that this behavior kind of comes from something that we start to see him spiral into the dark side a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
it's tough.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a very interesting way to look at it. I'm not sure which way is the correct way to look at it necessarily. Because that scene between him and Padme was actually probably one of my favorite scenes in the book, just because of the foreshadowing that was in there and the hypocrisy and Anakin not getting it was definitely really interesting. And I really like the part where like Padme's like, well, maybe she'll be the one to bring him back, because technically that's what she does through her kids. But I really like that part. I know that doesn't answer your question at all, but I think it does kind of foreshadow, you know, that he is kind of slipping, and maybe not necessarily slipping yet, but he's kind of got that mindset that it's okay for me, but it's not okay for these other people. Yeah. And that kind of shows like the selfishness that is driving him, because the whole reason he turns is selfish. Like, yes, he's trying to save Padme, but he's trying to save Padme because he can't live without her. So like his entire like character drive is that selfishness. So I think it kind of does show some of that, which I think is interesting and a point I actually missed while reading it. I'm really glad that came out.
And we're getting closer and closer to, you know, Revenge of the Sith here. Like his frustration with the council, with the Senate, like it's just he's going to really aggressive means now. And I'm the chosen one. You just send me in. I'll take him out. And I mean, he does. You know, my doubles have power. My doubles have powered. My powers have doubled since we last met, Count. So you see him becoming more aggressive and just saying, if we just kill this one guy, like it's over then. And that's also how inexperienced he is as well, and how being focused as the chosen one, he's just led to believe that his powers will save the ones he loves. It'll accomplish great feats. It'll bring peace to the galaxy, when in reality it's way more complicated than that. He tends to see the world just through that, and it takes him knowing he has children and understanding how we think in his comic book Vader that he will come to accept, I killed Padme and I need to deal with that. Holly, am I wrong?
I don't think that you're wrong. And if you don't know what we're talking about, listen to our last episode.
That's right.
Hello.
Luke, I mean, are we giving Anakin too much flack here? I mean, like, this book ain't even about Anakin.
Too much Anakin.
You know?
There's always time for Anakin in Star Wars. I think it's good continuity with some of his lines in Attack of the Clones, because he says, you know, in those awkward scenes in the plains of Naboo when him and Padme are alone, and he basically says he'd be open to a dictator.
Yeah,
just making people do what the dictator wants, assuming the dictator is benevolent. So that's what you kind of see the way Anakin sees the world. Like, as long as there's an authoritarian who has people's best interests in mind, it'd be okay with him. And Absolutely. He sees himself as maybe, you know, being an actor on that side of good, even if he has to do it through, you know, dictatorial means. So I think that all lines up. And I think what Paige is speaking to a lot is sort of the brilliance of Palpatine's manipulations through contriving the whole Clone Wars and setting these events in motion. What he's done is create this pressure on the Order that makes it more likely for them to choose paths that sort of corrupt their core values. Now, they don't necessarily have to, but they're put under so much pressure to try to keep the galaxy stitched together that they choose these, like Yoda says, the dark side is an easier path. It's faster. It's not necessarily more powerful. But because Palpatine has, orchestrated things in a way that it just puts them backs them into a corner. And so they're more likely to go down this path. I think Mace is the biggest example of this. He wants a quick resolution to things, and so he's willing to go down a path he might not otherwise have in less trying circumstances. But because things have gotten so bad, they're under so much pressure, Mace is willing to embrace these things. And like he says in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin says, no, he should stand trial, don't kill him. No, he's too powerful. We just have to eliminate him now, and then we move on. Just like he did to Jango Fett, cutting off his head. Mace is kind of like a no-nonsense guy, which you think would jive with what Anakin is all about too. But except for when it's not aligned with Anakin's needs, he bumps head with Mace. But there's really a lot of similarity between the two.
Yeah, Michael and I were talking before this episode, and we were kind of talking about some of those decisions that felt kind of rushed in this novel, like immediately jumping to, say, executing Quinlan Vos. And we kind of talked about, this still is the Clone Wars. There is a war going on, and there's a lot of other resources being used up. There's a lot of other stuff going on outside of what we see in the novel at the same time. And I mean, that is a reminder. And Luke, I know we've talked about this in episodes before. Sometimes in war, people make decisions that they would otherwise run from personally outside of that scenario. And maybe sometimes that's something that we can see here. But I do want to read you guys a quote from this book, since Luke kind of brought up different paths. Sometimes it is a dark path we must tread, so that long more for the light we shall. And I think that was, I don't know, of all the things that I read in this novel, that quote really stood out to me because I feel like it kind of spoke to the ability of Asajj and Quinlan both kind of like riding a bicycle down the line of the light and the dark and kind of touching their feet down on both sides and leaning more one way and one the other and then coming back in.
And I'm gonna say obviously that was Master Yoda, right? The
if
only individual that speaks like that. It's what you said earlier, Holly. We just watched those Night Sister episodes of the Clone Wars, and you're absolutely right. Think about what the Republic is going through right now. You have this Senate that's running out of the Republic's running out of money. They don't want to spend. Freaking Padme's here talking about humanitarian rights and feeding the hungry and stuff, and people are just like, we just need clones. We need to end this thing. There's a lot of pressure on them. She goes behind enemy lines to try to work with the other side and say, can we come to a resolution here? They try that. Doesn't work. The war isn't going well. Obviously, it ends around Coruscant. Are you kidding me? They're at your back door or your front door I guess in this instance. But so there's a lot going on, and it makes you understand that pressure a little more when you tie in other material. But Yoda, in my opinion, what we're hearing there makes me think of the more enlightened Yoda, Force Ghost Yoda that we see almost in The Last Jedi. Failure. You need to fail sometimes to better understand the world around you. That's not really the Yoda I was picking up on, other than when Anakin would come to him and say, yo, I'm having some dark thoughts about people I love and losing them. He's like, just meditate. Like, is he just letting him go out there and go through that crap? And just, he's chosen one. He'll work it out. It's cool. We'll always fail. That's naive of me. Is that what he's doing? Nettie, does this sound like Yoda? Christie Golden, having a lot of history of Yoda here, but making him a little more enlightened, like we saw in, what was that, 2018 or 2017? Was that The Last Jedi? Yeah. What did you think of that quote? I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like that more enlightened Yoda, and I think that Yoda shines through a few times throughout the book. Like, he's like one of the only ones that's okay with like pardoning Ventress like right off the bat, and I definitely think you see some of that, and it's definitely kind of cool to see Yoda's character out throughout like the entire series. How he is wise in the beginning and in Phantom Menace, but he does have that kind of arrogance too that the Jedi are suffering from right now, and kind of see as he's developing that and how it's changed by the time you get to that OT and that sequel trilogy.
And also some history between him and Dooku, right? Like, this is my old Padawan. Like, he's not. Is he a Sith Lord? Could we redeem him? Is he so lost?
Spoiler. He was so lost.
Boy, was he the most lost.
Give that man a map.
But you think about that confrontation that they had at the end of Attack of the Clones, like fair fight there. But is there some, is he hopeful that maybe Dooku can be turned around? Maybe we shouldn't kill him. I don't know. Maybe Dooku needed to go out there and fail to learn that he needed to come back to the fight. Rob, are you buying this? I mean, do you need to tread in darkness sometimes?
You gotta. I really. That's the thing that we need a story about Yoda for, because
come on,
that dude's a straight gray Jedi. But there's no way. This whole book, he played the middle role. He was like, okay, you go kill them, and then he's like, oh no, we pardon you. And I'm like, what? No, this isn't it. And that's why I think when you talk about Revan, when you talk about Grandmaster Luke, when you talk about everything, it's Quinlan. Everybody that has jumped between both the light and dark have always had that. And I think that actually could make the best Jedi. And I think that the closest Jedi that actually came to it was Grandmaster Luke, because he actually walked both sides, got both things, understood both sides, took both skills from that in, the EU universe. He was able to use that. But I think when Nettie was talking there a little bit, he said he's arrogant, and Palpatine called him arrogant. And I think that's the one thing.
Yeah.
That's got to be it. I think that he was so powerful, and at 900 years, when we just found out, last Jedi Knight, our last casual council, that Yoda was boss at 100, and it was almost there. So we're talking about, if you were a boss at 100 and you got 800 years or 600 years on you, you're gonna pretty much think you don't stink, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And that lack of history, I think we all love Yoda. We all just accept he's wise because he's got a cool hood and he walks with a cane and he's pretty baller with a saber.
Mm-hmm.
He does have questionable grammar.
Questionable grammar. Yeah. How is that kid educated? I have no idea.
But we trust him.
We trust that he is leading us down the right path. But we could use some backstory. I'm down. I was excited when we were going to get a Yoda story or a movie, but maybe we need to kind of flush out his history and how did we get to where we are. That kind of, I don't know, a bit of an arrogant, confident Yoda. Like, how did we get there? Was it always that way for him? Could we do exactly for Yoda as we've done for other characters that we understand where they are a little more now? But Paige. But there's still some hypocrisy there with Yoda, right? I mean, like, come on, like he's, is it just when it's convenient? Yoda's like, yeah, totally. Hey, he went to the dark side. Sometimes you need it. Like, it'll be fine. Or like, no, we cut the line here. We don't lead into temptation. Like, is it just convenience? Like, does he just saying the right things at the right moment because that's what you want?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. He's less likely to be like execute a person than Mace is, but like you said, with Yoda, everyone just assumes he's like wise because he's just this tiny little guy and he's just so smart. But why is he so smart? I don't know. I just feel like he plays both sides a lot, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Come on.
This is just me.
Come on.
Just now.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. This is happening live.
This is live, folks. If you're 800, 900, 1,000. It doesn't even matter.
We don't. Yeah. I think once you get 500 at that point,
I mean, you're just
age
old.
is irrelevant.
Yeah. If you're 900 years old and you haven't slipped into the dark side and not come back, I feel like you kind of do reserve the right to talk about the ability to dabble in both sides.
Or did he?
I don't know.
I've already, just in this conversation, we've had 40 minutes we've been going. I have created a backstory for Yoda that I would love to see.
Can we hear it?
Parts of it. So I'm seeing like Yoda during like a, let's call it, when we think of the Old Republic, you almost think of like a kind of medieval time, even though we know from the games and the books it's like no, all the technology was pretty much the same, like starships looked the same, we still had lightsabers, like nothing has changed in 1,000 years.
So you're not saying Yoda on a dragon wearing full suit of armor with a sword, not a laser sword.
Actually would be really sick. I would be down to see little Yoda riding a giant dragon. Let's make that happen. That would be so sick.
I want to see this happen too. So
right.
But I just picture the dragon looking like Falcor. Okay.
Let's throw the dragon in there, and its name could actually be Falcor. I'd be down. Maybe that's a trademark in French. I don't know. I see Yoda like, when you think of medieval times and like there's like a king or like someone who makes decisions and they take someone to the courtyard and they're gonna behead someone, right? And I just feel like Yoda back in the day was having to make some tough decisions, and like he whipped out a saber and he beheaded someone and thought that will get people in order, and it's like, and maybe he struggles with that. Like maybe there's those types of experiences. He's like, that's not how you handle it. I don't know.
To me, the dark side literally is executing people. So that's part of it, a big part of it for me. So that's why I had a problem with the whole like execute Dooku, execute Quinlan, because like ultimately like that is a step into the dark side if you're making the decision to terminate somebody's life like that instead of just put them in like a high.
It's not the Jedi way. That's what Anakin says.
God.
He's been seeking counsel with Yoda, so we think Yoda kind of thinks that same things. But in a war, when you're losing, desperation ensues. Think about World War II. Things weren't really looking good in the Pacific. We made some really questionable choices just to end that thing because it was costly. We didn't want to drag it out. I mean, that's history. They're taking straight from, our history on planet Earth. It's just, and that's why I love it. It's lessons to be learned. Well, yes. Maybe to this day, we are kind of, being hypocrites because of our past.
This isn't a history podcast.
It's not, but we love it. Holly, you had a couple of other great points, and I think we probably can start getting into kind of some of the meat of what happened, because I could talk about this other stuff all day. It might just have to be another podcast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Guys. Yeah. Okay. This is just something that I had a huge issue with. We were talking about Asajj, and I really like Asajj. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. I liked her before I knew her.
Wow.
But I will tell you this. I read this book before I watched any of her episodes in the Clone Wars, and I was worried that the Clone Wars may change my opinion of her, and those episodes did not.
Good.
But something that almost changed my opinion of her was when she made Quinlan kill the sleeper. And that scene made me so mad and so uncomfortable, because you guys have heard me say it a million times. The thing that I love about Ezra Bridger is his ability to connect to these animals, and he's like an empath, right? Empath. Yeah. And he can like feel what they're feeling and have that connection with them. And then to see Asajj come in and be like, look, if you want to know how to use the dark side, murder this innocent animal that the Night Sisters have tried so hard to use in their trials to become a true witch and Night Sister, but it'll be easy for you to kill it, and you're gonna feel really bad, but you gotta push through it. And then he does.
He does. Is that? It's been a long time since I read this. Is that her having him show her like he'll do anything for me? Like that's how dedicated he is to me? Because I'm pretty sure at that point they were kind of a thing, right?
I don't know. I don't know. Paige, did you think that was more of like a do this for me, or that was a do this for like the mission killing?
I think it was both. Because they were definitely, I think, a thing at that point. Because they were in that cave, right?
Yeah.
Boy, that's a That's putting it lightly.
Stop it. Stop it. That's no.
That's peak. I appreciate that on the FCC airways.
I don't know what the point of that was. Number one, they described this thing as like so beautiful, but like also terrifying. If you look it up on Wikipedia, the thing you will find is like a blob with a face. I challenge everyone to look this up on Wikipedia. It's a special entity. But I don't understand what her point was. Like it was gonna get rid of like Night Sister knowledge, and I don't understand what her whole point would have been other than for him to go dark, but also like and that's it was dumb.
It is, but that's almost the genius of Asajj, because you do not really know her purpose for, like, is it just show me that you're loyal, or if I know you do this, you're going down a path where we can accomplish some things. I got some debt I got to pay off, or like we could, slay Dooku, or there's other things that we could do to get, like, or is it just pure temptation and the dark side? That's what I love about Asajj, because it's not very clear what, the intent was. Luke, am I wrong, or was it pure love? Like, show me that you are dedicated, or like,
murder
what was it?
This thing to show me you love me,
or murder. And I kind of find that strange that Quinlan would do it. I think when he used that psychometry, I think of Cal Kestis and how in tune he was with like people's experiences then and understanding them. And I feel like with that power, that's something you kind of gain insight into. And so you're just like, you want to kill this thing, but maybe that's just the dark side.
Yeah, I think what Asajj feels is that he has to embrace a part of the dark side to tap into that quick, easy path for power, to be able to be ready to face Dooku. Because he's told her, I've been sent here by the Order, the Jedi Masters, the Council, and this is my mission. And she says, like, you're not gonna be able to do it unless you embrace some of these dark powers that give you that quick, easy path.
Yeah.
And you first see with the snake that she tries to get him to do the same thing, to kill just for no good reason.
Good point.
And he can't do it. He kind of loses his concentration and ends up getting bitten by the thing. And it hurts like hell. And she's, and that to her shows her, I have to put him in such a situation, that a life or death situation, to get him to like overcome his Jedi training, to tap into this darker side. And she sees the sleeper as the way to do that. Have him confront this beast who's going to kill him unless he taps into this darker side and destroys it. So that, to me, I don't think it was anything about like her. Like, I don't think it was like a turn on for her, or made her love him more that he killed the sleeper. But just like, she's like, I have to break through in this way that will get him to actually tap into what I'm asking him to tap into.
Yeah, because she's tried this, right? Like, she's tried to get rid of Dooku, and she can't. And why wouldn't she then? Is it forbidden for her to do something with her Night Sister background, or maybe she can't?
That's a great question.
I don't know why she herself, and maybe the book spoke to that. I don't remember, but why wouldn't she do that? It could make you more power. Maybe she doesn't have the courage. I don't know.
That I don't remember. I don't know. You guys can correct me if wrong, but I don't actually think that was explicitly spoken to in the book.
Yeah. Definitely a really intense moment, and I'm glad Luke brought up that other snake, because I forgot she'd already tried it once, and he's like, "Ugh, can't do it." Had a kind of a Cal moment, Cal slaughters creatures in Jedi Fallen Order.
Left and right.
Spoiler alert. So maybe Cal, wasn't as empathetic as I had thought.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily true. It's just a video game, Michael.
It's canon. The dude is slaying creatures.
But that's, you did bring up psychometry, and I kind of feel like, I don't know, Rob, you liked the video games, and that's what got you into Star Wars. But I feel like the psychometry for Cal was very, very helpful in Fallen Order, but I feel like in Dark Disciple, it's ultimately what led Quinlan to finally turning to the dark side, right?
Boy, yeah.
So
It was.
Yeah.
it was Dooku in the end, because it didn't matter that he turned his eye on that snake and that he choked out the sleeper. You know, he could have stopped, and I think that was his Jedi in him holding him back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it took a dark side user that was just evil like Dooku to actually push him over the edge. And even in that first fight, when he was just completely outmatched because he was still holding back as a Jedi. And I think that if like maybe, and we've seen Obi-Wan fight Dooku twice. And what happened to him? He got taken out, and then I still don't know how this happened. He had a whole section of a platform fall on his legs, but he can still walk. He can still walk.
Terrible.
Yeah, because he's got metal legs, and we never saw him because he always got long boots and stuff like that. So
that's the Force.
That's a great canon explanation for the boots. I like it.
He's a cyborg. He's a clone.
Like
but going back to it, he embraced it, and I think when Dooku finally put him on his missions, that's what ultimately allowed him to get close to him to the point where he could have actually did it. But he still did not pull the trigger because he wanted more power. And that is, I think, it's like biting into an orange cream sickle. It's like you're like, great, and you got to eat it really fast. Yeah. And I think that's really what the dark side does to you. And I think he got to the end where it was like he got that gumball at the end and he started chewing it. And that's
How many licks does it take to get to the center? That's still a question we have not had answered in the history of this planet. But I love what you're saying, Rob. And when you speak to it, I'm thinking about how similar his experience is to Anakin, right? Like Quinlan's thinking probably in this moment, like, the Jedi Council has put me on this mission to save the Republic, save the galaxy. I can be that person. I'm strong enough. If they trust me enough to do this, and they know it's going to take some shady stuff, they trust that I'm strong enough to come through in the end, which he does, spoiler alert. But, like, that responsibility placed on you, they may seem as expendable. To him, I'm the champion. I'm your knight you're putting out there to put an end to this. And that's what Anakin was thinking, right? Like, I'm going to bring peace to the galaxy. It just so happens, that's the path to the dark side. You don't get that power. You don't get all of that without accepting that. And there comes a point where your conscious, like, mind and all that Jedi training that shit goes out the door, because you see then, wow, with that comes power, and that lust just comes more and more.
Yeah. It's, to me, that's what it takes to actually kill a Sith, because the Sith will kill them in a second.
Yeah.
But the Jedi are always like, we're going to play around, and here, by your throat, here. Yeah. And that's what gets them killed. Half the time, even in EU, half the time the Jedi always hold back, and they get whooped because of it. And the only, like, it just, to me, it ultimately takes, and it goes back to the gray path. Like, you got to walk that. And I think that you brought up a great point when you compared Quinlan to Anakin, because when you think about this time frame, there's two people that are literally involved because Maul was removed. It's Dooku and Palpatine, and those are the two people that actually put over both of them.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. The more we talk about it, I feel bad for Quinlan. Like, this dude's put in a tough spot, like, just like Anakin. Like, you're I don't know. You're telling people they can't have these attachments. They can't tap into what makes people relatable,
It's that human nature.
Or if for other species, whatever it is, like, you're denying them of appreciating others. They appreciate people's lives. They're there to protect them, but you don't understand what it is to relate to them. And until, like, you just don't have that, especially from a young age. And Anakin, has been a slave, a quarter of his life. So you're rejecting that one thing that can make them more relatable to others, and then throwing them into a position like this. That's just, maybe they didn't understand it. We think it's hypocrisy, but it's like, it just, maybe nothing else worked in the past. It's like, you got to cut it off. Like, you can't be having relations. You can't be doing anything. You're going to wear a robe. That's why I think we're going to learn something in the past has forced them to kind of take this monk lifestyle and reject everything because it ended bad for them.
You know, I have a question for you guys.
Come on, Holly.
Do you think that if the Jedi had allowed themselves to actually enjoy those relationships with people and enjoy that intimate human, or as Michael pointed out, I'm not being very inclusive, different interspecies connection, do you think that they would have participated in creating clones for Clone Wars? Or do you think that that would have been like a total moral debacle?
Because that's, I mean, they just kind of, but the thing is like when they found out about it, once again, the circumstances, like, we're like, oh my God, the Separatists have a huge army and these clones just kind of showed up. Because remember, they had really no idea about it. It was kind of done like, Luke, who was I forget, Sypha Dyas, right?
Bingo.
Yeah, put out the order for that. So they didn't even really know it was. We kind of went rogue and did that. But then they show up and they're like, wow, they'll just listen to one command, and Yoda's like, take me to the forwarding command center. And they did, like, okay, let's put an end to this. That was a terrible Yoda
It was
impression.
pretty good.
Not bad.
That wasn't bad.
But like, I don't know. If they weren't in those circumstances, things were peaceful, and they're like, hey, you know what, just in case something happens, we got this clone army here on Camino, like, would you take them? They'd probably say, that really kind of goes against what we're all about. Mm-hmm. But wait, you have a few million already ready, and the Separatists are our back door, and the Sith are back. I don't know. Let's take that.
So maybe they're just as like opportunist as the Sith are, and
I think so. I think
just ignore that.
They found themselves between a rock and a hard place here, and they know that. Well, this dude here is supposed to be the chosen one, but the Sith are back, yet we're in this war, and nothing seems to be ending it. I guess we'll accept these clones, and, when that's not going well, I guess, an assassination attempt, and let's send some dude who, is maybe vulnerable enough to say, oh, well, the council never asked me to do anything, and now they're like, hey, you could be our savior. Of course I'm going to jump to that. And he doesn't even realize himself, how vulnerable he is in that moment. I don't know, guys. What anything to say about that?
Well, I think you point to the sort of original pressure, original sin that the Jedi commit. That again, sort of their hand feels forced. By the manipulations of Palpatine. They embrace the clone army out of necessity, and they feel. But Yoda, again, like we've been talking about, tries to split the difference. Season 1, Episode 1 of the Clone Wars is Yoda with a handful of clones on a planet.
Luke.
And he's talking about, I see you individually in the Force. You may be clones, but you are still luminous beings in the Force. And so Yoda continues to try to straddle this line in the way that they've asked Quinlan Vos to straddle this line. They've sent Quinlan Vos into the underworld to be undercover and ask him to dabble in these things, ultimately to do good, but to dabble in dark in order to do that good in the end run. And, it's part of the corruption of the Jedi. Yoda and Mace as well. I'm always going to defend Mace. I remember there was like very early episode of my appearances on Flying Casual where there's an email from Nettie and he took a little shot at Mace in an email that I took umbrage with because I'll defend Mace for a while. But, Yoda and Mace have good intentions and want to strike that balance. But it's, once you get corrupted with the dark side, forever it dominates your destiny. And that's the tangled web they're weaving here.
Yeah, you always have to remember that Palpatine is on the other end of all of this, right? We tend to forget how masterful he is.
Yeah, I was actually gonna make that comment earlier because Rob was talking about Palpatine a little bit earlier in this episode, and it's funny because we know that all of these assassination attempts in this novel on Dooku will be futile. It's not going to work. He's going to walk away from all of them, not always unscathed, but he's not going to be killed. And we also know that Palpatine is a huge driving force behind everything that's happening with his manipulation. even though that itself is not referenced, because we know, I mean, well, Darth Sidious is here to stay, but I mean, and yet Palpatine has still been a huge part of this conversation about this novel.
I feel like he set up the dominoes, right? Just all you do is press one. And then we're experiencing in these books all these dominoes kind of falling into place, right? Like Dooku kind of just falling into his lap, it seems. You know, this former Jedi? Like master? Come on, I could use this. Like it seems like it's just kind of falls into place for him. He's a masterful Sith. That's why when he's gone, no one's coming back. Rob.
I got something. And you see this in the EU in the future with Jaina Solo, because she becomes a Sword of the Jedi, which ultimately, to me, feels like that's the bounty hunter Jedi, because she's the person who goes and kills.
Yeah. She does.
And that just seems... Yeah, and look, she had to go train with, was it Boba Fett? Was it Boba Fett? Or anyway, it's been a lot of books, but she had to learn unnatural things to actually take her brother down.
Yeah,
and that right there alone was the driving factor. And so even in the universe going forward, it always seems like the Jedi always got a hitman, but they try to still play that. So what are you? Are you like just deploying like, hey, we got this guy, but hey, we like people, but you can't love anybody? And we talked about this on the last Casual Council. Both of you talked about this on the last, that they are not, and just this podcast too, that they are not allowed to have any attachments. And would that make a difference? I don't really know, because I really think the Jedi just need somebody evil enough to chop heads off.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you have to do.
Sometimes.
I don't want to sound like Joffrey here.
Whoa.
Another Game of Thrones reference.
There it is.
But sometimes you got to put heads on pikes.
Sorry, taking it back to something else Rob said. Rob brought up Boba Fett. Oh. And you guys know I love Boba Fett. My handle on everything is Boba Fettuccine, because I love Boba Fett. I love pasta, and I love bad puns. But I actually, it's funny, Michael.
It is good.
Okay, but I actually think that I could have done without the Boba Fettness in this novel, because I didn't really care about the relationship that Asajj had with the other bounty hunters for the sake of moving the story along. And I actually would have preferred more of maybe insight into what Quinlan was going through when he was with Dooku.
Yeah.
And I feel like taking out the bounty hunter stuff would have given more room to kind of add that in and kind of see, other than Dooku giving him his old master's lightsaber, what else he kind of experienced at,
Yeah, they try to pull, I think Bosk. They pulled Bosk at some points. So it's trying to tie the universe in. I get it, but the pages do you share in some? You mentioned some issues you had with it. Like, do you share in that issue, or is there some others that you want to highlight? Let's talk about all those. Everyone can out their issues with the book.
Flesh out, Michael says.
Baby Boba Fett is a little bitch.
He's one of the most annoying in what was it, Clone Wars he was in?
Oh my god. The whole arc of him trying to kill Mace Windu is just oh boy. And then he blew up his dad's helmet. I'm like, what are you doing? Why? It would have been okay to keep that whole little snarky thing of like Asajj Ventress like totally screwed him over, because that's hilarious to me. Because he thinks he's like this big bad. I'm like, you're a child, sit down. But it did. I mean, why? It's just like how with the Mandalorian. I'm very concerned. It's none of my business.
But it will be here in a couple months, so we'll find out.
I don't think it was necessary. I agree with Holly. I think they could have done more introspection with Quinlan, and because I wanted to know what was going on, what Count Dooku was doing to him. Why was he so messed up? I would like to know more about that than Boba Fett's issues.
Am I wrong in that they kind of blew over him in his time with Dooku when he became
Yes.
what was his
Yeah.
Admiral? What's it face?
Enigma. Yeah.
Do they pick those names themselves, or are they assigned out of a hat? Because it's terrible.
Yeah,
bad.
It's just a random name generator that they found on Google.
Sometimes that
It's
works
bad.
though.
Sure.
What was yours?
Real fast.
I don't remember.
That Boba Fett accent was the worst accent I ever heard. That's all I gotta say.
In the audiobook?
Yes, it was so bad.
Great
So
at that
bad.
kind of.
It was like half like Mexican, like half I don't know what. He was like, "Oh, we gotta get over there." And I was like, "What are you, British, French?"
Cool.
What?
Probably used me. I think I tend to do a pretty decent. I think it was somewhat an Australian or New Zealand. I don't remember.
You
what
thought
was
it
New
going on.
Zealand accent isn't easy, okay? So it's
And I
not.
nail it. So hire me, Lucasfilm Press.
Crikey.
So Paige, what other issues did you take?
Oh boy.
Oh, got to know. Oh,
3 pages.
a whole book full of them.
Yeah, I do. Let's see. I mean, you might want to go to somebody else first because, like.
Yeah, Rob.
Oh,
We just lost
Yes.
Rob.
What would you like?
He's back.
No, you didn't. You don't lose me. I was gonna go somewhere real quick, but what's up?
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, no, go do what you gotta do. Let's Nettie. Did you have? Let's go to Nettie because I want to. An optimist likes the positive stuff in Star Wars. I share in that. As does Luke. We'll go to our negativity with Paige and Holly. For that. But let's dig into that. I don't think I hear enough from you of like, man, I didn't really like this part of the story, or maybe you did. I can't remember.
You can start with Mason.
Well,
Sorry,
everyone
Luke.
sharing in the Mace Windu hate, Luke. I apologize. I won't participate. But Nettie,
I'm sorry, Luke.
Nettie, what is there something in particular? Is it because they kind of glossed over his time as Enigma? From what I remember, I was just like, wait, okay, so then everyone's familiar with him, and then like
3 months later,
and freaking Asajj is just like hammering drinks, and she's like, it's like that kind of glossed over that time. But what maybe didn't you like about it?
Yeah, see, I think I've got 2 main things that kind of stuck out, and the first one does kind of relate to that. I think Luke said on before that like the book reads like episodes of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Which it does, for better and for worse, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because like on one hand, it's more Clone Wars, which I love Clone Wars. Like I was a kid when it aired, so it's got a special spot. But at the same time, that doesn't lend itself to a book as well as an originally crafted story might. Like, I think I could like sit down and like read through this again and mark like, this is where this episode would have ended. This is where that would have ended.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of cuts off and cuts short some of the development they could have had. Not to say that like characters won't develop, but I think they could have done a little bit more with that.
Yeah.
And then my other big complaint was at the end, and I know they gotta let Dooku get away at some point, but like it seemed to me like he zaps Asajj. Spoilers. Like when the Asajj are having their moment, and from my understanding, like Anakin and Obi-Wan were in there and like watching that moment, and did like Dooku just like get up and like run away?
Yeah.
It's just like Dooku got away somehow, but I'm like, Obi-Wan and Anakin were just standing there. Or did they just like not pay attention? Like maybe I missed something, but that part really confused me.
It was a classic, like Dooku salutation. He just takes some rocks somewhere and throws them or hovers them over somewhere. And I'm like, oh my god, we gotta focus on this. And he just sneaks away in his speeder.
It was like a classic Thrawn moment where they were like, he'll have his day, and then we have to focus on.
Is that what happened? Maybe.
I don't know.
They're there to end the war. They just let him get away. Luke, are we being too hard? I mean, maybe they had other stuff going on. I don't know. I tend to remember, like Rob mentioned, Obi-Wan kind of being thrown down and being like, aren't you going to get back up and fight Obi-Wan? Was there a state of just like, he just like was zonked out or something? Like, are we not giving him enough credit?
No, I think I can't speak to that part because it starts to get a little fuzzy towards the end there.
And that's why. That's exactly what we're saying, Luke.
I think that it's a powerful end for Ventress that she eventually, in a way, sacrifices herself for the one that she loves, and helps him fully return kind of the light side, I think. But one of Nettie's criticisms despite it being, one of my favorite novels of the new canon. I agree with Nettie. Like you can tell it's adapted from Clone Wars scripts, sometimes in a negative way, with some of the way the action sequences are written. I think they would have been written differently if it was purely started from a novel perspective. And yeah, moments like you can feel like the commercial break in the episode almost. But Christie Golden, I think, did such a great job adapting from scripts for a TV show.
Yeah.
Despite those challenges, and I think I was really skeptical about the her other Star Wars book in the new canon, the Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad book, because I think like backstory for a video game isn't the best place for a novel to start from, just as a premise, typically. Mm-hmm. But that book is awesome, and it was one of the I put it, when I was catching up on new canon, because I started a few years in to the books all being released, so I was behind and I had to catch up, and I was going through kind of prioritizing, all right, what I'm going to read first, what I'm going to read last, and I bumped that one down towards the bottom because I haven't played the game. I know a lot of the cutscenes and I've watched them on YouTube, but that book is awesome. So Christie Golden is a solid author. That Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad book, I'd recommend it for anyone who wants to read another Star Wars book they haven't read yet. So despite those challenges of having to adapt it from scripts for a TV show, I think overall she did well, but I definitely agree with a lot of what he said there.
Did anybody?
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, has anybody read? She did a short story in a magazine called Kindred Spirits, and that was considered a prequel to Dark Disciple.
And that was a while back too. I don't even remember what it was about, but I did read it.
It was. Did any of you guys read that? No.
Yeah, say I did.
Okay.
It was included in my copy here, so.
Oh.
Nice. Why the hell didn't we get
Nettie? Calling the audible.
Man.
Nettie. Okay, cool. Then, because I didn't get to read it and I couldn't find it on the internet anywhere. Yes, I searched. Was there anything in that you felt was super helpful for understanding Asajj a little bit more?
Yes, it's been a little while since I read it, a couple weeks here, but I know it touches on Asajj's relationship with. They mention her name. I can't remember her name. She's the pirate that they take the job from. It's mainly about how those two knew each other and how they got to meet, and there was some pretty good development with Asajj at the end of it about because that pirate asked her to join her crew, and Asajj was like, no, not now, and the reason she gave and the thought process there was pretty good. But I definitely need to reread it again before I can speak too deeply into any of that.
I heard that Hondo makes a big appearance in that.
Yep, Hondo is in it. Yep.
I don't know. I need to get my hands on that because I haven't read it and I want to. And maybe it is in my. I don't think it is.
It is, Holly. It's in the back.
Well, slam on us for not finishing the damn book.
Did Holly even read this book?
I don't know. I'm
Where
trying.
he is.
What about us audio cast people, man? We don't get that. Come on, man.
Fair.
We're left out.
You might have to pay extra for that.
It's right here. Read on for the short story, Kindred Spirits. I'm the worst.
I love that you brought up Hondo, though, because Hondo, another opportunist. Now that I think about it, him and Asajj, pretty similar, tends to kind of scurry away from situations that aren't going so great for him. Also, if something's going to be in his best interest, he's going to do it. And maybe it's not always the most immoral thing to do. So nice reference there about Hondo, because I forgot about Hondo. Very similar character.
Plus, isn't Hondo part of the pirate group that she hates so much? Or am I making that up?
I think so. I don't know what specific group it is, but yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I guess I need to read that. I'll let you guys know what I think.
Luke, is there anything else that you didn't necessarily enjoy about it? I mean, we like it, but is there anything
other than the fact that it was never made into actual Clone Wars episodes? 'Cause I think, like we've hinted at the backstory of this, it was a slate of something like 8 episodes of the Clone Wars that were going to be made for season 6, I want to say, but because Disney canceled it, we didn't actually get that. So my burning desire, ever strong, is that they come back and do the Dark Disciple special on Disney Plus and release this animated film and actually put it on the screen. As much as I love the book, it would be, I think, really special to see it in the book, or see it, the animated version of it. And I think the other sort of criticism that's been hinted at here is we don't know much about Quinlan Voss's time as Admiral Enigma. And I think as much as that is sort of disappointing to not hear more about it, it's, I think, purposely done in the story so you're not sure about where he is at that point. Like, which side is he on at this point? Oh, there's this story out there that he was Admiral Enigma helping Dooku win all these battles. But as a reader, you're kept more in the dark about exactly what those details are so that you're not sure where Quinlan stands, so it can be kind of surprising to you as the reader to figure out where he's going.
That's true. So, because I know, okay, backpedaling when I said do away with the bounty hunter, would do away with Boba Fett in here and give me more of, Enigma. But I think actually maybe that would make a good comic line.
I think that would be, because that's you're digging into a time period where it's very close to episode 3, I would think, and we don't want to dig too much into it, so a comic line would probably be decent.
I think that would be good.
He could go out and do things that we don't have to describe or too much, but we can see kind of what happened in that time. And that makes a lot of sense what Luke said. Like, they don't want to go into that too much. You just, and if I recall, I don't even think like they did that much with Revan either. But that's been a long time since I've read those books. But kind of glossing over those details, one of the book's downfalls. But ultimately, can I say, like, I really love this book, and I would love to see a cinematic adaptation and bring back the gentleman that played Quinlan Voss in episode 1. Let's not forget, he's there on Tatooine. Am I wrong, Luke? He's in the shadows. He's at some outdoor cafe, just sipping on some Jawa juice, probably watching over Qui-Gon, and who knows what Qui-Gon's gonna do. Maybe he dabbles in the dark. He tends to he's kind of reckless. So maybe he's sitting up watching him doing the dirty work that we know the Jedi Council expects him to do.
That's a good bit of trivia. I wonder who that guy is. Does anyone have the extra's name who appeared as Quinlan Voss on screen?
Well, those Trivia Trials players expect a little trick question there.
I think I said this on an episode, and Luke gave us the name, but I said if there ever is a live-action adaptation of this, I think Hans Conried, was that his name, Luke, who plays Thorin Oakenshield in The Hobbit, would have been...
No, you're way off.
I'm sorry, who? Richard Armitage?
Not a Harry... Wait, hold on. Not a Lord of the Rings podcast. Not a Hobbit podcast. Holly, that's okay.
Guys,
huge fan of the Hobbit.
I looked it up online.
Podcast.
It says Thorin Oakenshield. Hans... It's right here.
Hans?
From the animated version, Holly.
Oh, God, I don't know. I just looked it up. So I still got it wrong. You literally can't trust Google.
You can't. You also can't trust.
But my point stands. You absolutely can't. He's a burglar, but he means well.
Yes, not with those big feet. I'm sorry. You would not get around that delicately. Anyway.
Did you see him around the troll? Okay. But anyway, my point stands. I think that he would play a really good Quinlan Voss.
I agree. And you know what? Here's the thing. You're going to be like, I'm going to go look at the credits and look where Quinlan Voss is. I'm sorry. It's probably like background character 79 or something. Like, I don't think at the time they weren't saying, that's Quinlan Voss back there. This is a total like retcon, kind of like, hey, by the way, at that cafe, that was Quinlan Voss and he was on a secret mission. So I don't even know if you're going to get those details as who that guy was, but maybe that's
Holly, have you casted Asajj at all? Do you have an idea for Asajj's role?
Maybe me.
That
was
sorry.
terrible.
That was not a good me
terrible.
or Asajj.
That was not you.
I got one.
Thank you for
I got one.
Rob.
It would be Angelina Jolie like 15 years ago.
15 years
Good
ago.
work.
Rob, we can't go back in time.
She can still do it. The voice may be a little.
They can make her look young. They can make her look young. It's like, who pulls off the short hair? Like
She
Miley
still
Cyrus?
looks great. She still looks great. And Miley Cyrus can stay very far away from my Star Wars. Thank you very much.
That's a great.
Wait, who said
I don't know if we necessarily will in the Star Wars universe love her to death. You know, just don't think she'd make a good Asajj.
I don't know, Luke. Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you.
Seriously,
I'll cast the whole damn film.
Come on.
I could see Charlize Theron.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
That's
yes,
great.
absolutely.
Did you think I said Miley Cyrus?
I know you didn't.
I did say that. I did say that.
Rob said it.
The big
Hannah
eyes, like
Hannah Montana.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
no. I would say this. You got to have an evil person, and I think Angelina Jolie can play the role better than Charlize Theron. Just my opinion.
Well,
Have you watched The Old Guard?
That's so good. You should-
No. Actually, somebody told me about that. Just like the other day. I don't got Netflix no more.
It was fantastic. She kicked a lot of butt in that movie,
Yeah, she
and I
did.
can't wait to see a sequel from that movie. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, been busy watching Cursed, so don't have a whole lot of time for anything right now. But I love the story. I love, there's some romance there, but it's not your, light versus dark. It's not Lost Stars. The Empire and the good guys, and they fall in love, and it's a tragic story because they're on opposite sides. It's deeper than that. It's darker than that. It's passion.
Wow.
The dark side is full of passion, whether it's love or whether it's power, it's passion.
It's not wrong.
And I love the temptation and how complex this random character is that we've now made, background character 79 from the Phantom Menace. I love that we've given him a story. We still honestly don't even know a ton about him. We know that losing his master was very sensitive to him. We still don't have I don't know, maybe I missed that part in the book, but we don't have a ton of background on him too. So complex. Star Wars does this every time with these characters. Maul, Ventress, with Ventress we got a lot of, we know quite a bit about Ventress' backstory, but we could know some more. But I don't know, just delving into different worlds is fascinating to me, and I want to understand that dark monster a little more,
The
and
sleeper?
like the sleeper and what I love that we're experiencing different realms, and it was it's good versus evil, but I don't know, seems like there's a little more there that just I don't know. I love the story. I can get over the choppiness and the episodic kind of run that it gives, but I don't know. I believed it. And I think Christie Golden is a great Star Wars author, and I hope we get more from her. Nettie, final words about Dark Disciple. I mean, who is the Dark Disciple? Do we know? Is it Quinlan? What is a
Could
disciple? I have no idea. I'm asking questions I don't have answers
What is
to.
a disciple?
But any closing words on Dark Disciple?
It's a very good book. Definitely check it out. That's the main things I can say about it. It's definitely worth a read.
That's what I'm talking about. Rob?
I got yes. So we have not talked about this. This goes back to our last council meeting again. The Force.
Come on.
And how the hell does Luke take 10 minutes of Force lightning? She catches a bolt, bleeds out of her shit, and dies. Like that, I had a real problem with. He stopped it. He stopped it. Right? Quinlan stopped it. And she did not get hit. It wasn't like he was there for an hour just.
Yeah.
Right? He
Oh,
wasn't
fantastic.
doing that.
So
impersonation.
I try. I'm the man of 1,000 sounds sometimes. Oh, yeah. But
Hello.
Phrasing.
hour and 35 minutes. But it bothered me that the Force lightning actually killed her. It never really killed anybody.
Yeah.
And it was more of like a stun move. And Dooku's Force lightning in Battlefront 2 is and to me, to him to just wake up and go and just get her, that's what killed the ending for me, because I was like, I didn't want them to go off, because I guess I had this infatuation kind of like with our eyes of like, where did Ahsoka go? Well, when I was listening to this, I was like, well, where's Ventress go? And I was like, well, what happened to Ventress? And like always, when Dooku would always talk over, he'd be like, oh, yeah. And then it's like, really? Like, you just waited till they were sleeping and she jumps in front of Quinlan and then, like, everything's fine. He gets away and then it's over and they give her this. And I'm like, no, Luke, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, He took Force Lightning from Palpatine. Like, way more powerful than Dooku. And, I mean, I know that Luke was more powerful than Ventress, but Ventress did prove her own. She had a lot of background. She was strong. There's no way that she just jumped in front, saved Quinlan, and had blood boiling from her to die like that. That's just my opinion. It was sad.
It's you find those inconsistencies in Star Wars with these powers and how they affect people, and I totally get it. I'll take it back to prior conversations we've had and like passing and things like that in Star Wars. And to me, in my mind, I have issues with it too. I'm like, oh, come on, but in my mind, it's almost like she understood she had a purpose at that point, and it's like with Luke. We like to think that Luke wouldn't have died when he rejected himself. It was almost like Ventress found her purpose. She found love. She found things that she never thought she was going to find on her path, and she was able to kind of let go. That's how I'm kind of, because I also
let's go, Mike. Come on, man.
I share the same concerns with you, because I was annoyed. I'm like, God, she's taking a lot of crap. She's fought in 2 Jedi Masters by herself. It's like, that shouldn't have done that. But to me, it's almost just like her purpose has been served at that point, and I'm ready to let go. That's just how I look at it. Maybe that's wrong, but
I have a rebuttal.
Oh, God.
Yes, Holly.
Oh, you had a big issue that we didn't talk about.
Let's go, Holly.
I had a really big issue that we didn't talk about with this. I'm going to bring it up. And
let's talk about now. I'm down for a 2-hour podcast. Whatever.
We have 2.2 left on the card. It's not very much time.
Behind the scenes, you've heard it here, folks. 2.2 on the card. Let's go all night.
Okay. My big issue with saying that Asajj served her purpose is that I don't believe that her purpose was to allow Quinlan to continue on his journey, because he didn't do anything after she died.
Wow.
He was babysat, and then that's all the story that we get. And this is a bone I have to pick with Star Wars in general, is I'm really sick of women in Star Wars being sacrificed to further the story of men in Star Wars stories.
No, you're absolutely right.
And that is something that I did not appreciate about this novel, is that it's like, she is this character, this strong woman. She's a night sister. She's a witch. She's full of power. She's full of fire. She's full of life. And then all of a sudden she's going to be like, oh, I love this man so much. I'm going to throw away everything that I care about, my goals and what I want to do and what I've been doing. And
what were her goals? You know what I'm saying? I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I get that she seemed a little bit lost, but I feel like she has a greater purpose in life than just being sacrificed so that Quinlan can be babysat by the Jedi Council.
Yes.
And then probably meet his demise in Order 66. I feel like that saying that her purpose was to allow that to happen to Quinlan and then Dooku to get away, it kind of didn't feel worth it, and it didn't. I have a big issue with that.
Oh, I totally agree, and we need to take it up with Christie Golden.
We need to take it up with Lucasfilm.
Well, I agree, but the writers are writing the stories, and I think there's definitely numerous accounts, Padme being one. Wow, did she really just die of a broken heart? I guess, but that's that just shows. I don't know. I
think this is just me. If I were going to change the ending of the story, I think that Quinlan would have been the sacrifice. And I think that Asajj,
I could not agree more.
I think that Asajj would have been able to accomplish so much more, because I think that her love for Quinlan probably gave her a little bit more of that fire and that will to live, and kind of helped her a little bit more towards the light. Yep. And I feel like with that, she could have accomplished so much more than Quinlan did. And I just think that their deaths should have been reversed. But Paige, I know you can back me up on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired of women being receptacles for men's pain in media. I'm really tired of it. And in Star Wars, anytime a woman is in love or just exists, she gets the bad end of the story. And Hera and Leia are the exceptions, not the rules. And their lives still suck. And that's not to say that a character shouldn't encounter obstacles. That's necessary. But when you look at it, most of the male characters survive.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. I agree with Holly. I think that Quinlan's death would have made a lot more sense. And he does survive 66 because it's in a comic. He survives. But I think to take a character who has been through so much and then have her just die for her boyfriend or whatever, I think it's just a waste. I think it's a waste. They could have done a lot more with her. I say that about a lot of Star Wars characters that are women. They could have done a lot more with a lot of people. I even say that about male characters too. I think that they kill people off way too quickly. But I was just an English literature major. I don't know. I just
one thing to add to that, and then you could go on with the whole thing of if Ventress would have moved on and Quinlan would have died, would you have loved to see her team up with Ahsoka? Because they were both pretty much outcasted, and to see the story change, to see them come together, I think that would have been amazing, and I think it would have really helped. And then I gotta say, y'all gotta learn about Jaina Solo.
Well, there's some good stuff there because
I love Jaina Solo a lot. I think I think Ahsoka and Asajj would have been a great team. I would have loved to see that more than Ahsoka and Maul, in fact, because I don't really like Darth Maul, but that's my own business. Sorry.
That's fine.
I think that would have been great. I think that would have been super interesting because it's two women lifting each other up, but they took it a different way. I just think we need more strong female characters that don't just, die of broken hearts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
if you read the Padme books, it's a waste. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I think this is just me speaking for myself, as a female viewer, reader, lover of Star Wars, I think that we do all agree that Star Wars has such like a message of hope. But ultimately, watching it as a woman, it's not the same message of hope that I think a lot of people get, because I think it's more so like you need to sacrifice things that you love so that certain people can then continue to go on. But I think
agree.
The thing that I would like to see change in Star Wars, and I think it's definitely something that can and will. And I think that I don't even think I know that there are a lot of women who love Star Wars that agree with that, because I think that that's a grievance among a lot of those lovers of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think it would have made a lot more sense to have him die and then her go to the council and be pardoned, and then from that point, what is her story?
Yeah, and she was pardoned.
She was, It felt like it could have ended there, and he could have passed. It would have made more sense that, and then maybe the Jedi saying, "Wow, that wasn't the way. We lost one of our own, and we shouldn't have put him at that risk. We knew what the risk was, and we didn't." And
I don't think any of that was Christie Golden. I think she worked with what she was given.
They said, you got to get rid of her, and this is the way we're going to do it. We're not going to dedicate any more resources. That's probably what they.
But I don't know, and that's something interesting. Maybe I would like to get her thoughts on like how she had to write in ultimately the demise of Asajj and how she felt about that, because I don't know that I've seen that in the interviews, and that answer might be there, but I actually would be really interested to know, because she did say that, she joked and said that she did have a lot of Kleenex and a lot of tissues ready when she was writing this and when she was watching the Clone Wars, and I feel like part of that is because she had to kill off Asajj, and I think that when you write these characters, you feel like they're a part of you, and when you kill them off, I feel like, you feel that loss. And
it would be interesting to reach out to her on Twitter, maybe even, and say, hey, like, what was the reasoning behind it? Is it just simply you needed to get her out of the universe? Could there have been other ways? Did you pitch other ways? I think that, and hindsight, like maybe she goes back and says, wow, that would have been a lot different now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She could only do so much, right? Because they told her what we need, and these are the scripts that we're giving you, and this is what happens to certain characters, details. So
yeah, she's a character you don't hear a lot of people talk about when you talk about the female characters of Star Wars. You just hear a lot of hate on Rey, and then we'll say like, I think Gina, Carano or whatever from Mandalorian's awesome. Like, it's like, okay, well, what do you think about Asajj? I never hear anyone really talk about Asajj.
More
Right?
Asajj conversation, discussion.
Well, we were trying to get to like closings and how we feel. Well, so let's get back to that before we do have a 3-hour podcast. So a page summary. Would you give it a scale? I mean, an 8 out of 10?
What's your Goodreads rating?
Or were we in the
that's not out of a 10. I mean, I would give it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I liked it. I didn't not enjoy it. I mean, I have critiques, but I still enjoyed it a lot. It's not the book's fault that this is the nature of Star Wars. Like I said, I loved exploring both those characters. I think that they're good to have in a relationship together, and I thought it was interesting. And they brought up like a jewel encrusted lightsaber. I mean, what's not to love? And she had a yellow lightsaber, which is like what I would have. So I loved everything about it, to be honest.
I'm down.
That
But will we see
cabinet.
the book? And
That cabinet. What about the cabinet?
I lived the
of
cabinet.
Lightsabers.
Yeah.
That's some Cal stuff right there.
That's true.
Dark.
That's true. Luke, I know it seems like, 80% of this podcast, we've been, giving this book a hard time, but I think we all do enjoy it. I mean, final words, man. I mean, it's still up there, right? I mean, you haven't left this conversation saying, God, this is a garbage book.
No, it was immensely enjoyable to go through it for the second time, because this was one of the earlier books I picked up when I started going through the new canon novel. So, again, thank you, Holly, for the opportunity to go through it again by selecting this book. And to weigh in quickly on sort of the discussion that's been on the tail end of this, I think it could have been equally interesting if Quinlan is the one who didn't survive this story, or even if they both sort of together didn't survive it. I think maybe from the storyteller's perspective, we have so much more attachment and experience with Asajj that as a reader, viewer, experience or of the story, our attachment with Asajj is greater, I think, because we've had so much more backstory with her. When you add up all we know about Quinlan, there's relatively little content. There's the cameo we've been referencing in Phantom Menace, and then there's a great episode of Clone Wars that actually did get to air, Hunt for Zero, which I would highly recommend people check out because it's one of the more like unique episodes out there. And then this story, but like other than that, like in some comics maybe that I'm not too familiar with, but like I think our breadth of Asajj knowledge and experience with her and walking down her path is greater. So I think her death is more powerful to us. Oh. Maybe that was the choice, regardless of gender in that instance. So to sort of like play on that side of things. But it's a great story. I think it does romance and relationships really well and really interesting in an adult way. It's believable in the way it all plays out. And I think the Clone Wars overall does relationships and romance better than what certainly I think George achieved in the prequels as somewhat intentionally as some of the romance between Padme and Anakin is I think was intentionally done in the prequels. What they did with Anakin and Padme's relationship in the Clone Wars, it plays out in a much more realistic way. And I think Asajj and Quinlan is yet another example of like a Clone Wars relationship playing out in this more relatable, more believable, more significant kind of way. So everyone who hasn't, kind of weird if you've listened to 90 minutes of this already and haven't read the book, but go do it if you haven't, or do it again because it's great the second time around.
Definitely. I love that idea, would this ending have been as impactful? Because we're sitting here saying, God, I want more Asajj. It's like we would have been like, okay, when are we going to get it? And you know what? They probably never would have even done anything. We would have just been kind of left to, what did her future hold? And so there's something about having closure and knowing, you know what, maybe there was a little bit of something there and maybe she kind of saw like, she did something and it served a purpose and she's, a person of many hats, but here I did something that I believed in and I believed in this person. And maybe that's enough to say that was a cool story. And I'm glad it had a somewhat of an ending, but do we want more of her? Absolutely. But And I love thinking about, as messy as the relationship is in the prequels with Anakin and Padme, we don't really understand it. We do, like you said, Luke, get these experiences with other characters, and I know in this podcast even find myself making connections and saying, oh, okay, well, that they find ways of making it make sense, and we understand what these folks were going through, that we don't necessarily need a novelization of the movie and fill in all the details that we don't get in the cutscenes. We can tell another story and find it relatable to what we understand about the films, and through someone else's story. I think that's fantastic. Holly, I think it was a great pick.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Luke, for picking it. I will give my final thoughts. I think that we did have a lot of critiques. I think we just spent the last half hour kind of talking about them all together. But I think that that's such a good thing, because I think it shows we cared so much about the novel and the story that it had to tell, that we were so passionate about the things that we wanted to change. And a lot of those are issues in Lucasfilm, and a lot of those are, issues with just the characters or the way that it was written. But I think that overall, like, personally, if I'm giving it my Goodreads rating, I agree with a 4 out of 5, because I just think it was so intriguing, and I think that this is one of my favorite Star Wars books that we've read so far. I blew through it. It was a great recommendation from Luke. I love the Night Sisters. I love Asajj. I think that what we got from Christie Golden was a very strong character who makes her own decisions and doesn't have a problem with telling people these are the decisions that she wants to make, but also somebody who's willing to listen to the other side and comes back around. And she is ultimately willing to work with the Jedi Council, and she does have, what's the word, guys? Anyway,
balance. She's
sure.
Whatever.
Compassion.
Thank you. Yeah. Compassion. And I think that those are all important traits, because I think Paige brought it up earlier too. We don't really see a lot of that when we talk about characters on the dark side. And I think that Christie Golden did a really great job of creating this character that we can all empathize with and feel sympathetic for. And I think that was just so well done.
Absolutely. Folks, probably one of the best, hyperspace book clubs we've ever had. I think this was a fantastic discussion, and I hope we find more of these books that we can really dig deep into.
That's right. Well, I did put a poll in our Facebook group and asked everybody to let us know.
Is the poll closed? Did we put a timing on that?
The poll closed on Wednesday.
Okay.
If you have been following along, then I think that you know what we're reading. I'm pulling it up, so I'm dragging my words out as slow as I can.
But Falcon.
I already ordered it.
So sorry.
Not the winner, unfortunately.
I know.
He said, "I'm sorry, I just had to put it in there."
That's okay.
Phrasing.
That's what we asked.
Okay.
Wow, apologetic.
So we will be reading the Ahsoka novel.
I like it.
That's the one that everyone voted for. We like to listen to the people here, so that's the book that we're reading
also,
on the second Saturday of next month.
You can tell that the Clone Wars and its comeback has lit a fire under this group, and they want to dig into all the stories that kind of take place, and all those awesome characters. And Ahsoka, a solid book. I've already read it. I know some of our folks here have, so pick that up. You've got 1 month. We are doing book clubs the second Saturday of the month, so read that bad boy. It's a quick read. So knock that out, and we'll be back next month to talk about it in September, the second Saturday. I want to thank our council here, folks, talking about Dark Disciple. It was fantastic. So much good insight. Mm-hmm. And that's why we talk about Star Wars with friends. And we have good friends here that we talk to, and always offering nuggets of information and thoughts about a story that I never, ever would have made.
That's right, Michael. And they keep balance.
Because you would go straight to the dark. Luckily, I'm here to balance that out with all the light. There is.
Paige needs to come to a council meeting, because if she wants to talk about Force, we got part 2 of the Force coming up. She got some ideas too. I mean, she knows EU like I do, kind of like come on.
part 2 of a 10-part series on the Force, where we're going to break things down through a timeline. I am excited to get back into that and try not to sidetrack everyone as much as I have. But boy, things just keep popping in this old noggin, and I just have to talk about it. And I guess that's what you do on a podcast. I don't know. I don't really run one. But guys, I really hope you enjoyed that. We're going to continue next month with the book club and the Casual Council as usual. And every Monday you can tune in here on Flying Casual and listen to our monthly episode. Comic books galore happening lately. So expect another deep dive into, I think, issue 5 of the main line that just released this past Wednesday, and we'll be talking about some other juicy stuff. Maybe the Bad Batch finally, Holly. I have no idea. Maybe we'll finally get to it.
We might actually get to the Bad Batch.
Yeah, 3 weeks after we said we were going to talk about it, maybe we'll finally get to it.
We run on our own Flying Casual time here.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here dedicated to the news every week. Whatever.
That's
we
right.
do what we want. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. And you know what? If you want to get into the book club and you want to make decisions and vote to what book we discuss next, get in that Facebook group. Join that thing. A lot of fun stuff going in there. And I do know that our Jedi Master Brent is working on a little fun project, I will say, involving sausage quotes.
You guys are going to like it sounds dirty, but you're going to like it.
This one's going to take a lot of work on his part. A lot of sausage, a lot of quotes. Looking forward to it. So expect a little fun surprise there in the group. I think he'll let me know when that's done, and we'll get that thing introduced to everyone. But looking forward to that. Looking forward to interactions with you guys in the group, on social media, everywhere. Check us out on YouTube. If you want to see this handsome mug, and I'm talking about myself, not Holly, join us on YouTube to interact with us there. Just another different platform. I know some people don't like the long platform on YouTube, but it's nice to sometimes see who you're interacting with.
True.
So join us there if you want. Subscribe, like the videos, and check us out on all podcasting feeds. Even what's the newest Alexa one? There's an Alexa one now. I can't even remember what it's called, Holly. It's that new. It literally just dropped. So we're on there, all platforms.
I would like to reiterate that the podcast will not be
on Alexa
or read to you from Alexa.
Actually, I don't know. Actually, if you're listening right now and you have an Alexa, try hollering out, "Alexa, play Flying Casual." Let's see what happens. I don't know. Who knows? Holly, I don't make podcasts, so I couldn't tell you where we're at, but we're on the interwebs. So go check us out there. I hope you guys enjoy that, and we will see you next time. May the Force be with you.